Meanwhile, the government have announced that it's encouraging businesses to require COVID status certification. A snap vote on mandatory vaccinations for people working in care homes has been scheduled for the House of Commons today. I'm joined now by Silkie Carlo, Director of Big Brother Watch. So, Silkie, is this a good idea? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, look, this is we're just in really dangerous territory this morning. And when I came into civil liberties campaigning, I never thought that I would be facing a snap vote on mandatory vaccinations in this country. There's been no proper public debate about this. This has happened. It's come out of the blue, and the government's doing that deliberately because it doesn't even want to foster a debate. So we've got the government lying, misdirecting, U-turns on COVID passes. We've now got mandatory vaccinations. The really dangerous thing about this is the government can no longer say no one is forced to have this vaccine, because now there are lots of people who are going to face losing their jobs if they want to decline or delay vaccination. And it's not just health workers. When you actually read this regulation that they're trying to push through today, it's anyone who might be working in a care home. That includes electricians, plumbers, beauticians.
Okay, so
cleaners,
I understand.
staff.
There are a whole range of people there. Let me just understand before we get into that. Where do you stand on the vaccine itself? So, for example, have you been offered it and have you taken it?
What I've done is completely irrelevant to the conversation, and it's personal and private. And I think it should be for everyone. But I wish I didn't have to say this. I'm not an anti-vaccination person. And I actually think that this whole panic about anti-vaccination is completely overblown. The UK has one of the most positive attitudes towards vaccinations in the world, certainly within Europe, and much more than other countries that have mandatory vaccination policies. This is not a debate about whether or not a vaccination is good or not. Look, we can all see, that the population has a very high level of immunity now, almost 90%. There's no doubt that that's due to the vaccination program. The link between deaths and hospitalizations has been absolutely slashed. The question is, do we still respect the right of individuals to make choices about their own bodies?
But you see, I think this is the point. The reason that I asked you that is that, so for example, I'm very happy to say I have had both vaccinations. I wasn't given a choice over which vaccine I had, but I'm reasonably relaxed about that. However, I will defend to the hilt somebody's decision. If they do not feel comfortable with having a vaccine, they should not be forced to have it in any shape or form, which is why what's going on today seems to be very, very concerning, that, as you say, there are so many people who by default, so say, for example, okay, so care home workers, you could perhaps put an argument for that. I don't agree with it, but you could. But if you're suddenly saying anybody who goes into a care home, so for example, as you say, electricians and plumbers and workforce, and you say you have to be vaccinated in order to be able to do this, it seems to be nonsensical. Could you say that instead of that you could say, if you choose not to be vaccinated, that's your choice, you must have some kind of negative test. Is that fair, or is that too much as well?
Look, I think in the height of a pandemic, in a wave that we're in, such as the one that we're in now, who doesn't want care homes to be safe? There are all kinds of measures that you can put in place. And as an article in the BMJ said just a couple of days ago, vaccination is not a panacea for safety. There are a whole range of measures that you need to have. That, of course, is going to include testing, equipment, training, PPE. That was missing for months. I think that the kind of sick thing about this is that care home workers are some of the hardest working people in this country. They've been on the front line. They've been at serious risk over the last 18 months. And how does the government repay them? By now, not only they've had to go through this traumatic process of facing potentially losing their lives, now their jobs, and an inquisition about whether or not they're going to be vaccinated. There were lots of people who, right at the start of the pandemic, vulnerable people who were in hospitals, were discharged into care homes. And that is where we saw this pandemic really take its ugliest, most deadliest grip. And this is a massive distraction from the government's really, really deadly failure. Now the blame is being pushed onto care home workers, despite the fact, by the way, over 85% are vaccinated. So where is even the necessity for this authoritarianism?
Okay, so I suppose what we're also seeing, though, is a lack of understanding that, as you say, the vaccine is not a complete panacea and is not a complete safety measure. And as a result of that, we should also be looking, as you say, at a range of other measures. So where is the test and trace system? Is it really working? I don't know about you. It's been pinging left, right and centre. And it almost has undermined itself as a useful tool because it's become so ill regarded, I suppose, for want of a better phrase. And also PPE failures. That if, for example, PPE, if it does work, and I think it probably does, where is that PPE provision within those places where there is still vulnerability, i.e. care homes? So ultimately, Silkie, from your perspective, who needs to be held accountable for this government action today?
Well, the government needs to be held accountable, and that's what I'm hoping the opposition is going to do today. But look, we haven't heard much from them either. So this is a profound change, not only for public health norms, but for workers' rights in this country. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to be listening to this thinking, does this affect me? Does this affect my job? Or my 18-year-old son or daughter who doesn't feel that they want to have a vaccination yet? And I would respect that. And look, has anyone actually said, you're not the worst person in the world if you don't want to have a vaccination?
And it's
your choice should be respected. You should be given the right information. And I think it's really important where there is low uptake, give people support, give people free time off work to go and get a vaccination, to recover from side effects if they have them, and all the rest of it. Support is so much better than coercion. I'm worried right now that care home workers have been left adrift. Everyone has clapped outside for them. But where is everyone now that they are facing this unbelievably draconian policy that we haven't seen in Britain since the Victorian times?
Well, quite. And we're certainly going to be keeping our eyes on that. So, Silkie, thank you very much indeed for talking us through that. So that's Silkie Carlo, Director of Big Brother Watch, talking about the businesses requiring COVID status certification. It would appear as if that's a step too far. If you want to get involved in that conversation, you can do so. As I said, there's a lot to talk about this morning here on Talk Radio.